and that's but
Hey, I just want to add one thing too, and if we did go to USU, we would want to have the streaming portion of it. That became very popular, and we did have students whose families were in Argentina and Mexico and some of that, and they were able to watch the graduation. So that was one of the really nice things that came about from COVID, was us learning how to stream some of these events, whether it was sports or graduation ceremonies. So either way.
that might be a positive in the future if room and weather's an issue. We're streaming more ball games. There's a lot of people who just, it's easier for grandparents not to go out in the weather, not to have to worry about parking issues. Streaming's starting to become an everyday, it's a normal thing. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's nice. It's nice for that. So.
Cherie's been trying to get online to see the meeting because she wanted at least me to share her perspective, and she says irregardless they're going to do a group graduation, and they've done that. They just maybe picked a different venue than USU to do it, but her idea is still to do something as a group. But she was able to get the smaller rooms at USU, and it made it a little more comfortable and things like that for Cache High. And then I just do have one question I'd like to see what the principals say, because it's something that is on my mind, because we have an obligation to continue to educate all of our kids, and how much of an interference is having graduation at your school with the freshmen and the sophomores and the juniors. What's going on with them if everybody's tied up doing other things and we're accountable to the state for 180 days of instruction?
Well, by the time you get, I don't know if I noticed anything different the last 2 years, or this last COVID year, well, even the year before. I don't know if I noticed anything different that last week. You still have all the same things that have to happen as far as turning books in, having grades finalized. You have, well, we didn't do Lagoon Day the year before during COVID. So that last week, I don't know if I noticed any difference that way. The one thing that was available for them is we did have more students that just would come in during the diplomas with Dave that might not have had, that were only there for brothers and sisters or things like that. We have a graduation committee that kind of works that, so it's been the same committee both years. I don't know, I'd have to kind of check with them to see, but third trimester at a high school is unbelievably busy no matter what. You got to remember, graduation comes right after all the AP testing and state playoffs and everything else, so I don't know. I wasn't actually on the graduation committee, so I'm not sure. It felt the same to me.
Just let me press you just a little bit. So, in your mind, the school day and the school week didn't change for juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. Nothing changed. Okay.
No, because on most of those days, seniors are, we still got kids in class, except for seniors. Normally, they caught a bus at 7:30 to go up to graduation practice on the Tuesday, or depending on what day you practice. So, that's a good question to possibly ask our teachers who are involved a lot more heavily in the actual graduation for our graduation committee. But I can definitely check with them to see, because I think Mike's right. There was some more work and time commitment, and that's just whether it's worth it, I guess. I don't know.
I think in my case, I can probably speak for Ridgeline. I never saw any kind of change. The school day went about its normal from year to year thing. I think we kept all that. A lot of those things were held after school or at different times. The people who are on the committees were expected to be in their classrooms. I never heard a single thing from a teacher or a student or any parents that said they felt like that changed or interfered with anything at all.
The one thing I saw, because we were told, run the regular school day, we won't make any adjustments to it. So we had our formal ceremony during the school day. And the thing I didn't like about that is that you can't have the teachers in there because they're taking care of classes. So you absolutely, if I'm graduating, I want to see my teachers, So that was one thing. And again, maybe I just did it wrong, but it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, and we took our staff and we kind of split them into thirds because we were literally spending 12 hours, 13 hours a day to kind of get through that, you know. So it did make it a little more difficult, and we've acknowledged that. But the feedback from the community is overwhelmingly that's their preference. So that's kind of, you know, where we're coming from.
Again, I just have to go off Jim's comments, not being there, but looking at the flyer, everything was in the evening. So, you know, with the USU piece, with the busing the kids up there and back, that takes your committee, requires subs. And if you draw the early graduation, then you're out of school again, where if you're doing it here, you can control and put all the things in the evening. And, you know, somewhere there's a sweet spot I think you could hit. So certainly it's more flexible because you're in control of the schedule versus whatever time slot you're assigned, you know, through USU. It's work either way, it's time either way, but
Yeah, your question, Mike, reminded me why we started at 3 o'clock and not 10 o'clock. For that very reason, we just released our other students at 1:30. We did a Friday bell schedule, and then we were ready to go by 3 o'clock. So, yeah, so much for the 10 o'clock idea.
This year we had our senior Lagoon Day on Tuesday, and then we had an after-school one on Wednesday. So ours were regular schedules except for that Thursday day that we had graduation. We had a 1 to 4 on that one. But you're right, Terry, we had some teachers that weren't there. So we had more teachers to the after-school one than we could have during the school, right? So.
Any board members who have questions?
I have one.
Go ahead.
Terry brought it up. Does this have, we're 4 schools that are close together, news travels. Does this have the potential of turning into a one-upmanship? Skyview did this. Why didn't Mountain Crest? Ridgelines was better than Green Canyons. Is that a concern?
I think we've heard some of that. But I think it's just like the surveys. I think you look at the majority and you know that there's always going to be outliers.
Mm-hmm.
But I made the comment earlier, Larry, that I think that if we continue, we at least try to make sure that we're all hitting some marks, you know, and maybe we did. I know what Ridgeline did because I'm in close proximity. I don't really know what it looked like at Green Canyon and Skyview.
Uh-huh. Okay. Fair enough.
COVID year was that one we went into it just with, everything's canceled, so do whatever you can. And I know we did some things that we liked, but the kids said, no, that wasn't a big deal, so they didn't do it this last year. But I would think we were a little closer this last year than the previous year, the first year of COVID, we actually couldn't do much.
I think you're right.
That year we were kind of on our own, so you did anything that you could do to make the kids feel good about it.
I think each school thinks they had the best in some way. You know, you listen to some kids and every one of them had parts of it that felt like they outdid the other school, and that's pretty natural in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
So-
I went to all 5 graduations, and everyone was so awesome in its own way. I appreciated everything that was done at each of those 5 graduations for the specific school community that you're serving. Well done. Nice work.
So my question is, based on your comment, Terry, that maybe you could do things similar. Would you even be willing to consider that?
Oh, sure.
although we did have fireworks, I'm just saying.
Didn't everybody end up, oh, that's right.
And who would you want to say, here's kind of what we want you to include in your graduation? Us or you come
They
up with
meet
the plan?
together as a PLC. They can figure that out.
And then all of them would be similar? And you'd be okay with that?
Yeah, I think we all agree that we'd like to do similar things like Terry said, but there's little personal things each school likes to add, but we could get along. Yeah, I think we all could work that out for sure.
We were respectful of it being a dry year and didn't want to cause any fire. Not that there's any competition we do.
Anyone else have questions?
Just one question about USU. I took copious notes because I actually work at the scores table for all the men's games, the basketball games at USU. And so I know the people who coordinate events there really well, and I was very interested in the list that you rattled off. I wrote all that stuff down because I agree with you. I mean, that's kind of bizarre, especially for them to charge you for 8 hours of police service. I'm assuming that was just your school individually, right?
Oh, this bill's our school,
Just
yeah.
ours.
Yeah, so, I mean,
we have
that
our
seems
own
kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
So-
we have our own
Our own resource officers are there.
Yeah, so I'm
And
gonna,
if memory serves me correctly, we get a bill for those resource officers as well.
But they want to be there because they've been with our kids.
Which
I mean,
is-
That's who we want there.
You just kind of wonder, where's the plumber hiding? 8 hours. I've never seen
yeah, I have to tell you, I would wonder that myself based on one of the buildings that I was housed in a couple years ago on the quad.
Where are the
I could have used them.
Where are
but-
the,
Yeah, so I'm going
Yeah.
to follow up on that, and meet with not just not just the events person, but also some of the people who are higher up at Utah State who work with, for example, recruiting. I mean, I think it's fair to say that that a major goal of secondary ed is to promote college readiness.
Sure.
And where we live in a country where only 30% of students end up actually going to any college at all, which is actually kind of shocking. We want to be doing better. And so, one of the things that I brought up with the board when we've discussed this is that you want graduations also to be aspirational. You want them to have a strong community component for important, I think, reasons that draw a community together. And you want to also, direct students and their families, to a higher plane as well. You want them to aspire to something greater. And in my mind, the way that the university is responding, to how high schools are holding their graduations there is maybe kind of a lost opportunity for both them and for you. That if they were to stage these in a way that, I made notes about how you feel like you're rushed and so on. It's like being in a church meeting where there's another congregation meeting right after you, and you sit there talking to your neighbor, and suddenly somebody's at the pulpit yelling at you all to clear the building. So I think that those are important points for us to raise with the university. To, I'm sure if the university, you felt like it was still an appropriate venue, particularly if they could streamline the costs, then the university could probably do a way better job helping to accomplish, some of the more, I think kind of personal aspects of the ceremony that you think are really impactful without charging so much money that that precludes you from using those money and those funds in other impactful ways. So, I can think of, a dozen things that the university could do to improve that. So let me, if that's okay, Terry, let me go back and talk to them within the next couple of days, see who I can talk to about that. And it might be, like you suggested, it might be nice to have a discussion with them. Not something that's necessarily drawn out because time
can I
goes
add
quickly,
a couple of things?
Yeah.
As I worked with Brandon Hansen at the university, the more graduations we had in a day, I think the better price we got to some extent.
If you started at 6 a.m.
And in defense of the university, I think there was always an effort to look at our district calendar.
Yeah, don't worry. You don't have to defend them. I work there, so I'm just kidding.
I think this is a fair statement. I mean, they looked at our calendar, and we've always been worried about, let's make sure that graduation's the last day of the school year on our calendar, or, again, that instructional time. But I'm wondering, why couldn't we have that latitude in that last week if we were to go to the university, to not try and crunch all the high schools in, if it's just going to affect the seniors? Because, truth be told, the seniors are done. And I can tell you that they're in class, and I will tell you that they're in class. Half of them. Because they're done. They're graduating. So, if I'm holding regular school during the day, and I have the graduation at night, why couldn't we spread it over that week? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think we did for a long time. And the crunching together was at our request. So it wasn't something the university forced on us. So
No, they tried to help us with our calendar.
we could go back to, and that's a legitimate thing. We could go back to,
Was that cost-driven, Superintendent?
Was it what?
Was it cost-driven just because you got
no,
a better...
it was just a desire to see if we could get them, I guess, economy of scale in a certain period of time.
Okay.
So, and a lot of it probably was for board members' sake, that if you could do 2 or 3 graduations in one day rather than 3 evenings. So there was all that discussion, but USU didn't force that on us. We forced that on ourselves.
Okay.
And self-inflicted it. And it might have been to try and keep school. We realized that last week was really hectic. We know that seniors, although we haven't ever broadcast it out to the world like you just did. Oh, yeah.
Could I add one other thing? The parking up there did not used to be like it is now. If you had an activity where you were taking students up to the university and parents were attending, the parents had to be in a specific parking lot, but there wasn't a charge. And the last time, which was quite a few years ago, that I had that situation come up as a teacher, they were charging like $5 per parent per car. And I'm totally on board with you we are doing them a recruiting opportunity that they could not possibly do themselves at the volume that we do. And at least we should be given some kind of compensation for helping them recruit.
Totally agree. I mean, Cache County is obviously the biggest recruiting base for Utah State University.
Maybe we should send them a bill for recruiting.
Let's grab our pitchforks. Let's march up.
Shane.
I don't know if we can look at bills from previous, because I don't remember the very first few times I was involved. I don't remember seeing the plumber and seeing those others. It just seems like over the years. But even the first few graduations I remember, parents could come down and take pictures. There was some freedom that way. We weren't rushed. I mean, so some things have changed over the years. I think it's just a little bit at a time. But yeah, the parking was never an issue. Things like that. I don't think we ever got charged with parking and things. But I guess the thing I'd want to remind, I guess if you're going to talk to Utah State is, I don't know, you get 15, 20 times a year, Utah State reaches out to us and says, hey, can we come to a ball game? Can we set up a booth? Can we come in during pack hour or flex period or whatever? Can we have access to your kids? And we don't say, yeah, but there's a parking charge, or we got to charge a plumber, or you know what I mean? That we always, I feel like we always have an open door because we want, and we'd say that for any university or any college that wanted to come in. We've done it for the community and businesses. We have some time built in between pack hours and things like that. That our students are available because we think you got good things, but it's sometimes the door feels like it's a one-way door, if that makes sense.
We need a partnership, a little more partnership.
I spent a half hour today working with Utah State softball team. They're doing a remodel on their field, and guess what? They're coming to Ridgeline, and they're going through North Logan to use North Logan / Green Canyon's field.
I think it's great. We'll have an opportunity to work with some of their teams, and our coach can learn. But if we wanted to go to Utah State to play a game or do some, it costs a whole lot of money. There's rules. So that's the frustrating part. That sometimes we don't even.
It's all one.
Is it a fair statement to say we don't even reach out to Utah State because there's enough red tape and difficulties that it's just not worth. There's probably some good opportunities we just don't take advantage of.
I do have one comment, Chris. This would be a great time, though, because I think these traditions have gone on for so long that nobody's really questioned the plumber or questioned, all the other services that have been there. But in Utah State's defense, too, when it was just Skyview and Mount Crest, it was really easy. And we did have those opportunities to have more time, and one was an afternoon, one was an evening. So now we've added 2 more high schools. I know Logan High has used it. I believe Bear River and Box Elder used to be on their field, and they've come over. So they're really trying to accommodate 7 or 8 high schools for that graduation week. And so maybe it's just some logistical things, and then just a reexamination of, because I don't think any of us mind paying for the services and the use of the facility. We understand that part of it, but I think it's added up, and then you start questioning when you see the breakdown of it, and then just the logistics of how many high schools are you trying to accommodate for graduation, and then how can we fit it so that people still feel like they have the time to mingle and visit afterwards, and those would be the concerns, and that would create more of that sense of community that you're talking about.
And when I talk to some of these people on campus, don't worry, I'm not going to try to over-represent or hyperbolize or anything like that. I'll be as diplomatic as I can, but I do feel like I think the word partnership was raised by Kathy. I think that's appropriate. I think it would be good for us to strengthen that partnership, and this is a good opportunity for us to do that.
Well, and that's why, a lot of times, even some of the traditions we have at school, after a while you go, why have we always done it that way? And you almost have to go back and re-examine, and then you change it up, because it doesn't have to be the same way that it always was. And this is probably a good time for them too, with that off year, to come back and say, okay, we could do graduation this way. Maybe make it work user-friendly. So.
Tim.
I just wanted to say one more thing. I think COVID's been difficult because we've all had to kind of figure this out 2 different years in a row. I think one of the things that the board needs to consider is, what is your role in the graduation from the standpoint of accepting the graduates or presenting the graduates? And how do we bring some consistency back to that? Because I think you have an important role to play as the board. It's great to have all the faculty there and the principals there and get that personal touch with the kids, and that's vital. But I think you've got to decide what's that consistent touch that the board wants at all the graduations, and how do you want to look ongoing? And because if they continue to do it at the high school with 2 different events, is there a place for the board to be there and present the graduates each time? Because that's really in your role to do that, at least that piece of it, and I think that matters.
This year there were 2 of us at each of the graduations where they were handing out the diplomas.
Right. Yeah.
I think part of what Tim's saying, though, is that if 99% go to one thing and 60 or 70% go to another, then that part of our role erodes. Not that any of us are authority driven or anything, but it's kind of a civics issue, I think, in terms of community involvement and what our different institutions mean. And actually, to that end, I'm the one that's been, I think, the most vocal on the board and the most obnoxious about this over the past year, because last year with COVID, it was so difficult, and the schools did such a great job doing what they could, and some of the immediate feedback we got last year was not dissimilar, Doug, to what you found from your surveys. Is that yes, when you remove an obligation from people, they willingly give it up. It's kind of like church. Once people don't have to go, it becomes a lot easier not to. And but yet, by not going and reducing their kind of ritual worship, no matter what their faith background is, but reducing that to just a personal, personal effort, it erodes a sense of community. And this all, my kind of, I guess my bringing this up to the board last year started with a column that David Brooks wrote in the New York Times. It was titled "We Need More Rituals," and it's a really interesting read. But it was written actually after COVID started. When every institution across the country, every educational institution was facing what they were going to do about graduation. And we've heard a lot of these comments like, well, it was nice to be able to show up with my child and my graduate and get recognized and then leave. And I do think, like Shane said, that part is critically important. It might be like a positive that comes out of COVID is that, maybe there is an aspect of graduation that focuses on the individual. But at the same time, if all you do is reduce graduation to Instagrammable moments, or you turn it into an Instagrammable event, as Larry was saying, if people are trying to kind of outdo each other, then you kind of lose that sense of community purpose. I think more or less that's kind of what Tim's getting at in terms of the role of the board as well. Let me just read you one quote from David Brooks' column, and then you guys can read it on your own. He's talking about community rituals, and he said, "A community ritual is an occasion for people to make promises toward one another, specific ways they're going to use their gifts to solve common challenges. Towns are built when people make promises to one another, hold one another accountable, and sacrifice together through repeated interaction toward a common end." And he's talking specifically about the ceremonies that we have as communities. And then he says, "We've become pretty casual over the years. We've become reasonably present-oriented. As a result, we've shed old rituals without coming up with new ones. We've unwittingly robbed ourselves of a social architecture that marks and defines life's phases." And so I really think this discussion is tremendous because, we've experienced something that's really disruptive, and hopefully it will lead to something, it sounds like it's going to lead to something even better. But I do want to just make sure that we're cautious about taking feedback from parents where they say they just want the quick and, the quick and easy option, whatever's most convenient. Because, once you start doing that, which is kind of, what David Brooks is talking about here in becoming very casual, then I think your community might splinter a little bit more, which is something that we've seen with all the isolation over the past year. And so this is the time coming out of the pandemic, looking ahead to next year and beyond, where we want to strengthen that community ritual in whatever way that we can that makes it more impactful and meaningful, but that maintains that community aspect. So anyway, that's just kind of my perspective about that.
And I really appreciate that. And so looking at what other people have done, I really appreciated the fact that every school made sure that there was a formal graduation event with speeches, the music, the accepting of the graduates by the board, because I do agree with that. Those formal things are important. And so maybe down the road we get a hybrid. Maybe we go to USU for that portion, and at the schools we can hold, a personal thing for, something that's that sweet spot. But I really agree with that, and I really appreciated how all the high schools still had that formal piece with the speeches, and the orchestra was there, and those traditional things. And those are things that need to be taught and should be taught, and yet recognize those personal moments. So I think, like I said before, somewhere is a sweet spot in the middle that I think we can arrive at that, adds to the wishes of the parents to have a personalized, but at the same time keeps those traditions alive where they're honored and taught to the rising generation.
Yeah, full disclosure, I don't think I've ever been to one graduation ceremony, high school or college, whether, I had a child involved or not, that I didn't feel kind of emotional. So That's why I apologize, but I feel, really strongly about these rituals. And I think, the ideas that we're coming up with here are just tremendous. I think it's going to make it even more impactful in the future.
When do you need us to make this decision by? So that you have that, so that you can move forward?
Well, yeah, usually USU schedules back in May for the next May, so that's...
I'd say we're going to start scheduling things now, like within the next few weeks.
our first meeting with USU has been in March, hasn't it? Going into the next year.
Okay.
So March, this past March
Pass.
for 2022.
Right.
So we're behind already.
Yeah.
So, so next week is our normal business board meeting. If we make that decision then, is that soon enough? Okay. All right. Thank you so much for coming and giving us some more of your time. We appreciate you being here and giving us some insight into what you're working with. We're glad. Thanks for all you do.
Will you please take a cookie as you leave? It's a little introduction to a theme that's kind of going to be continuing through the year here in our district.
They're worth taking, gentlemen. So.
Really, gentlemen?
And ma'am?
And Terry.
Seriously, Terry? You threw a hatchet on that one?
Great. Thanks, Doug. Okay. Thanks. See ya.
Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is hybrid board meetings. Tim, you're presenting this, is that right? I am. Your name is on it. I thought I was. But you can come up and we'll do it together. Okay. So hybrid board meetings, I would like to continue with these unless somebody has some serious heartburn
That's why
about.
Tim's here, so.
Do I have heartburn?
Do you have heartburn?
No. No, I think we just got to be careful to play into your goals of why you're having these hybrid meetings, which is to get more input and feedback and participation from the sites. And for us as a tech team, it's not hard to pull it off. It's work to pull it off, but we don't mind the work. So, but it would be nice if we could figure out if there's a way we can get more participation, or really think deeply about this and think because not many people come to our normal board meetings unless they have an issue that is important to them and is controversial and they want to speak about. But just to have a hybrid board meeting with an open invitation to come so far doesn't seem like it's drawing people in. And so I think we need to reimagine that part of it. The technical aspect we can figure out and pull off any way that you want, and I think have, but it'd be nice to figure out if there's a secret recipe or if that's really an effective way to reach out to your constituents.
Do you
Tell
think,
them we're considering closing the school.
Yes. Boundary change, tax increase.
changing the boundaries. Do you think that it becomes more work for the principals in the schools when we do that?
They stay a little longer but I think they may get a little discouraged if they've reached out to their community. I mean, if you look at the hybrid ones we've held, it's one, maybe two people at each hybrid board meeting.
And they had to ask those people to come
Yeah.
to present something.
And it almost seems awkward even for the parents to come because we put them on the spot of, well, you're the only one here, so you are speaking tonight.
Well, the last one we had at Doug's school at South Cache, I asked him specifically to ask his school community council, a school community council member to come and tell us what their council is doing, and if their council has issues that they feel like we're not addressing.
Yeah, that's a great way to approach it.
And so it was his school community council president who was there and spoke.
Right.
I also invited 4 elementaries in the area to attend that one as well. No, that was at Ridgeline. Well, no, I did invite the elementaries from Hiram to attend, and Wellsville at South Cache. But on the nights that we scheduled, that was parent-teacher conference for elementaries.
Yeah. Dave Swenson, and when he first came to Skyview, and I was his assistant, he had that same feeling, I want to reach out to the communities. And so we scheduled a round robin at a bunch of the communities, and we had a difficult time generating enough people at those meetings to make them feel like it was useful to go into a community. So I'm not sure we had a secret recipe for that either.
Well, we tried the parent, what was it
University
called? The
thing.
Parent University, where Kurt Jenkins went to an awful lot of work preparing a presentation. Was it on safety? Can you remember?
Well, that was part of it.
And we showed up. That was it. And it was when there were a lot of school shootings going on, and we thought it would be great information for the parents. And yeah, there was a reporter from the Herald Journal who came, and us. So it is really hard to pull people in.
The feedback that I received was, we think that everything is going well. You know, I don't see a need for you to. What input am I going to give other than that things are going well? That's what people have told me. Now, if we gave people specific assignments, that would be another thing. You know, if they were to, if we were to investigate something specific with that school, with that council, and have people come and report on it, that might be another way to get people there. But just to have them come and air their feelings, I just didn't receive any. You know, there were people that told me, we don't have any gripes, you know, we don't have anything to say, so.
What they were actually saying is, we'll let you know when you're not doing it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's
Actually
exactly
liked
right.
having the principals come here, and maybe that's the way to do it, is if we have an issue that we would like to have some input, just invite one principal to bring 5 people or something, come and share here, rather than out at the school.
Yeah, in the next couple of weeks, you're going to be hearing our ESSER 3 grant is due. One of the requirements on that grant is that we get stakeholder input. So we've asked for 2 individuals from each school. We'll be meeting with them to get their input on how we're planning to spend those funds and whether they have input on that. I love how you go out to faculty meetings and to school community councils, because that makes them feel like you're present and interested in the issues that they're discussing in their schools and trying to educate yourselves as to what are the issues they're dealing with that are on their agenda. I think I've heard lots of positive comments about board members at those events. I've heard lots of positive comments of, wow, I can't believe your board members come to the principal meetings or to these other meetings and just sit in and listen and are trying to be aware of the type of issues we're dealing with as a school district. But I think when that's reflected back to what's on your agenda here, it doesn't hold the same interest unless it's also one of their agenda items. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So shall we table hybrid meetings?
I think we ought to try to find other ways.
Okay.
That would bring them in. I just really liked how this worked tonight, with all of their feedback, and why can't we do that with parents or with one school or, you know, elementary principals or whatever to get input.
Okay.
I agree with that too. The 2 hybrid meetings I went to, the one at South Cache, the lady that was there and her kids, they were in a hurry. They needed to get to a soccer game or something, you know. And so I thought, you know, they were good to come, but then they were in a hurry to go. And the same thing at Ridgeline, Jeff, we really didn't get
Yeah.
a lot there, so
Okay.
I would rather have them here.
All right. All right. We will not do hybrid board meetings this next school.
But any other ideas? Yeah, we're willing, tech-wise, there's no heartburn for us. It's just the same thing we do every day, so,
Your team is awesome.
yeah, they are a
They
good
really are.
group, so.
But I think, once again, too, make sure they tell us when they're having their community council, so we have that schedule. I know we go online to see it, but sometimes we don't go online.
Carolyn is the one who gets that for us.
Okay.
So, do you want me to follow up with her on that?
I just think it's nice if we have a
Okay.
hard copy or
Yeah, I
something
do
where
too.
we
Okay.
are reminded.
Okay. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks.
Moving on, district-owned land parcels report by Jared and Dale.
Okay, in your agenda, in the content, there should be a file that you can download, CCSD Properties. And I won't go through all of this, that would probably be very boring, but it is, if you open it up in Adobe Reader, it's indexed so that you can click on any particular school and have a map of the different properties that pertain to that school. We have as a school district 48 parcels, and all but 4 of those are occupied with a building of some sort. So we have 4 vacant properties, and they are the first 4 that are shown in that PDF file. So the first vacant property is located in Hyde Park, approximately 300 north and 300 east. It's 9.77 acres. The second vacant lot is in Hiram, kind of across the street from South Cache. Is that right, Dale? I'm still learning these properties, but it was honestly a very good exercise to go through these. It's 10.2 acres. We have a vacant lot in Newton, which I think we all got an email about this week with interest there. It's 10 acres straight up, and then there's a vacant lot in Smithfield, just to the south of Skyview and a little bit to the east, 24.61 acres there. So those are the 4 vacant lots that we have. Every other parcel owned by the school district belongs to one of our schools, or here at the Legacy campus, or the service center, or the district office.
Excellent.
2 of them are elementary sites. If you build an elementary site in
Hyde Park?
Hyde Park, well, that wouldn't come, I'll never know. It's going to have to be a 2-story building, backed into a hill. It's kind of got a slope. It's a beautiful setting. It has a wonderful entrance way, and it's a beautiful site. You would probably build an elementary there big enough to house the people that are going to Cedar Ridge, and turn that back into a middle school sometime down the road. The site in Hyde Park in Hiram is exactly where it needs to be. It's surrounded by, when we bought it, it was just vacant property. It's now, it just stands out. You drive down in there and it's all houses except for the piece that we own. And just a great piece to have. Skyviews is a little more, it's a wonderful piece of property, but it's a middle school size. But it's not, I wouldn't recommend right now that we build a middle school there. So we're going to have to determine how to best utilize that property, or at some point trade it for a property that's located somewhere else. And the Newton one, I think we need to talk about it. I always, somehow it got in my mind told that if we didn't ever build a school on that property, there was part of the sale or deed that indicated that we had to give it back to the owners, but Dale tells me that's a dream I had. And so that's not the case. And there is a nice piece of property out there. And someday, we'll probably want to build a school there. And when that happens, I don't know. I've been talking that way for 25 years, and it's a little closer to reality, but not a whole lot, because the kids there, there just isn't enough kids with the schools that we already have. So, but I've had a board member sit in that chair and tell me, as a real estate person, you never sell property. And so I guess if you wanted to entertain an offer on any of the property, we have to put it up for public auction. And you have to declare it surplus property. So that's the process you'd have to go through.
Why, what was the argument as to why to never sell property if you own it?
You just don't.
Yeah, that's, you heard it right.
They're not making more property, so.
Gary.
And that's basically it.
Gary.
Okay, and me, I don't know if Dale might want to go first, but just two comments. That property in Hyde Park is beautiful, but as a former elementary principal for 20 years, it would be a nightmare to get in and out of. You would have probably 100% of that community would be parent pickup and drop off. And it's a long, narrow piece, and I think you would be backed up for blocks and blocks and blocks, which is what we hear in a lot, even at Cedar Ridge, which is a pretty open, that is a very large pickup and drop off around that parking lot, and yet we get complaints every year from patrons, from the city, from the local sheriff's department, everything. So I'm afraid that one up on the hill would be even more compact, if you will. The other thing is we do have property, the property that Heritage sits on, we do 10 acres, I believe, for an elementary and then 20 acres for a middle school, but that's a 30-acre piece I think we still own there. So technically there's 20 acres there on that Heritage property that would be maybe considered vacant, if you will.
Yeah, that's true. And that was a middle school site.
And didn't we have some property around Mountain Crest, right? At one time?
Well, it's all been incorporated into the site. So
I was just wondering, one time we talked, or someone talked, that we would, Karshner wanted to trade some to the south.
We approached him and he did not
want to.
He did not want to. So that's now being turned into eventually soccer fields and parking. If you go up there now, we do have parking for the baseball finally. So we just decided to incorporate that into Mountain Crest. So, and it's good because we had to get out of the agreement we had with Johnson's anyway about using their fields.
Right.
Dale, did you have something you wanted to add?
Actually,
Gary
brought that up about the heritage property. Is what
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for that info, Jared and Dale. Appreciate that.
You need to know that the buying of property, was that the 2004 bond?
I think so.
Yeah. That was led by a gal from Hyde Park.
Patience Fisher.
Huh?
Patience Fisher. She's from North Logan.
No, but the gal that run the whole building and bond committee she was from IHC.
Oh, Terry Chase Dunn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She, at that point, when we were going through said, you ought to start running this more like a business, and she said, you ought to be prepared to build when the opportunity arises. So that was a $60 million bond, as I remember. And that's when we went after all this property. And a wise investment it was. Most of every other bond we've ever put out there was just to build buildings. And so the next one ought to include the opportunity to buy some property. We ought to think about that really seriously. And boy, that was nice, because when it came time, I think, I know Mountainside was built with that money, I think, wasn't it? And it's just so nice that when the pressure's there and you say, okay, we need a building, well, you just say, okay, let's build it. And that was really nice. Only time in my career I've ever had that luxury. So that's a nice feature, and we need to think about that in the future, I think.
Okay.
Well, and think about what it would cost us now to buy
Yeah.
that property. Wow.
Yeah.
Is anyone, I passed on the letter of interest on the Newton property. Does anybody entertain any idea to actually sell that? Okay. Public input improvements in our next board meetings.
Got an idea to share, and we've talked about it as administration.
Awesome.
We think that we ought to do it in a procedure like this. We want to be able to have communication from patrons who come. What we don't want to do is get into debates. So, seeing that none of us had come up with the right idea, and I can't remember even who came up with this one, but we thought it would be nice if we added a line or two in our introduction that said, if you have questions that need to be answered, when you're done, you can go to the room right next to us, and whoever has that answer from the gentleman sitting down here will meet you there and answer any questions, and it'll be outside of the boardroom. We can still go on, and I'd like to try it. Nobody else has come up with anything better, and I've kind of gone out to my superintendent friends, and they're all sitting there saying, we don't know what to do. But this just seems to make sense. We've got the people here who have the answers. We just don't have time in public to do all that. But they could just walk right out there and go into that conference room, and we'd give them all the information that we have, or tell them we'll find the answers. So
I really like that, real time. I had a couple of hot phone calls about people that had come and expressed, but they didn't ever feel like there was a closed loop on it.
Yeah.
I really like that idea.
I do too.
Yeah.
just a thought.
Yeah, I like it too. And the only thing that I wonder if we could add to that is that if it's somebody, say, from my precinct, that we maybe also give us an opportunity to contact them after they've talked to somebody out there. I mean, after the meeting's over.
There's nothing wrong if that's a constituent that you know about. You could walk out of this particular meeting and go in there for a few minutes and tell them you'd certainly like to talk to them after too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That suggests a strategy for just planning friends then, and just to get us out of the meeting. That's the car and listen to XM radio.
He really didn't say that, Jared.
You had a prior motive.
Yeah, you get nervous when you go to the meeting, you pack your computer and take it with you and everything.
Okay, well, I
clubs.
think that everybody feels like that's a great idea.
I think it has some merit. I don't know why
So-
I haven't thought about it sooner.
Yeah, let's move forward with that. Do you want to
Get
write
some
those
verbiage?
lines?
Yeah, I know, but I'll have Tim write up some verbiage.
All right, that'll be great. And while you're doing that, make sure you add in verbiage about all your comment, because this is a public meeting, all your comments are recorded.
Yeah,
I think people need to know that up front.
yeah.
Thanks so much. That's a great idea. Okay, Kathy.
Okay.
Soup, you didn't share the other half of my idea.
What was it?
And he's done this many times. I think he does an excellent job when all is said and done, the board meeting is winding down. Some of you have done this at board meetings as well, and the public's either left or some of them are still here that may have commented. If just after you've had time to think about it, bring some closure to the item by, Chris has done it. We've appreciated that we had public input. Terry, I think you've done it. Soup's done it in his closing comments in the superintendent's report of, these are hard issues, we hear you. Just some of those comments as you close the board meeting, I think goes a long way in knowing that they were heard, even though you may not get in a back and forth when they're making the comments of, yeah, we hear you, and these are some of the issues. So I think that is sometimes appropriate and really good from the board or from the superintendent.
I agree. And case in point, when Mr. Lambert was here a couple of meetings ago, or was it, I don't know, I'm lost.
Last one, I think.
Anyway, he was here and just had a question about CRT. And instead of saying, okay, thank you for your comment, we'll get back with you, we had short dialogue. It was enough for him, and he was done. And he was happy with our response, and so it was taken care of right then.
And I still think that's viable. You have to read the audience, and
Right.
you have to know who you're dealing with. And if they just really want information, a short sentence or two can really go a long way. If they're here to argue, doesn't matter what you say next, you're going to get into the verbal bashing back and forth.
Right.
So.
And then, I don't know if you've noticed this, we've had a lot of people come late after public comment, and Gary's always the first one to jump out and go out in the hall, so they don't walk out of here thinking, I came and wanted to comment but never could. They've got an outlet there. The gentleman that was here last week, I went back and talked to him for a few minutes. He had wanted to comment but didn't know, was late to the meeting. I think, Chris, when I left, you were still visiting with him. He was from your precinct. So I think he walked out of here feeling heard,
Good.
even though he didn't have an opportunity to publicly present to the board.
Good. Okay. Does everyone feel like that will at least improve our public input moments in our meetings?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's always just been awkward, like, we don't care.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, we don't care.
Yeah.
We gave you your time, I'll get out of here.
All right. Okay, Kathy.
Okay, so I hope everyone got the message from Carolyn that we were just going to be talking about board meetings a little bit in our handbook, and you were asked to bring your handbook. I don't know if any of you did that or not, but this kind of stems from the training that we got on Zoom when the board president from Davis was talking about their handbook. Do any of you remember that Zoom training? It was quite a while ago.
Mm-hmm. The one with Nancy Kennedy,
Yes.
and the Davis School Board President.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway, he was talking about their board meeting, or their handbook, and said that in their board meeting section, they have it outlined kind of specifically what's going to happen in each one of those meetings. And I'm not sure if we want to do that as a board, or if we've already got that done satisfactorily. So first of all, just your feedback on, do you think it's fine the way it is? Do you think we need to add more detail?
There's a lot of detail in here, I mean, from what I saw already.
Okay.
What additional detail do you think you're talking
Well, I don't know. He said, especially for like the regular meetings, they kind of went through their agenda and said, on the welcome, we'll do this, on the roll call, blah, you know, so each section was kind of explained, which we don't need to know that, but this handbook is supposed to be for new board members as well, and I don't know if that would be overkill or...
I think most people understand consent agenda and welcome and roll call and all of that, especially after you do it a couple of meetings or observe it for a couple of meetings.
I think it's like the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Okay. Everybody feel good about leaving it the way it is?
I mean, I think there's quite a bit of definition. I don't know if...
You mean that's already in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay.
Maybe we need to review it more often, but...
Right. Yeah. And we talked a little bit about this with our agenda meeting, that maybe we can have a little training session occasionally and kind of go over some of these things. That would help it for us. And then if we do have new people come on board, make sure that whoever is the person that trains them kind of goes through an explanation a little bit more about the meetings and how they're to be handled. Okay? So then did anybody have any other things on here they thought needed to be fixed or changed? Mm-mm. All right, so I'm just going to offer a couple of suggestions, see what you think. On page 11, meeting agendas, the superintendent in conjunction with the board president and vice president. I think we need to add that in, since that's been brought to our attention that we're supposed to be meeting, those two are supposed to be meeting. Everybody okay with that, if we throw that in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And then on page 12, under meeting minutes, second line down, it says the audio recording of the meeting or the link to it must be posted. Is it audio or is it video now?
To my knowledge, it just requires an audio recording. Video is not essential. It's probably preferred, but it's not necessary.
So we could just leave that the way it is?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and then...
I'll double check that, but that's my understanding.
Okay, thank you. And then on the little handout that I have given you, this was something that the district did write up to be read before public comment. Just to save time here tonight, will you just look at this and see, should we add that to the handbook, or do you think it's fine if it's just included on the public input section of our agenda, where if we need to read it, it can be brought up and can be read?
I think it's more useful there than in the handbook, is right on the agenda.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, everybody feel good?
Yep.
Other than that, the meeting part's all right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm done. Thanks.
Okay. Jeff, over to
Okay.
you.
So, have you all had a chance to peruse the results of the evaluations?
Yes.
You know, as I read through these, I wished that I had a comparison to last year's.
Well,
Yes.
there is.
So
Isn't there?
that would be,
Right here?
no, I mean on the specific
Charts.
charts. I think that would be some good feedback for Richard, is to just suggest that we
Okay.
have,
Or have a running?
yeah, for comparison's sake. The summary is okay, but it doesn't lend itself to help with specific ideas, just like you talked about.
Yeah, so the discussion that Richard and I had was, everyone has, I mean, from the results, everyone has a pretty good feeling about what's going on, but the resolution of the questions doesn't allow for, really zeroing in on specific things. So I actually went back through all my notes that I've taken in the board meetings over the year to try and come up with some talking points. The talking points that I had one was this feedback loop from the public input. That was something that we've mentioned several times over the year, that we wanted something better, something more. And I think this is a great solution to that. The only additional piece to that would be, we get these emails from constituents that have concerns, and it would be nice to have a way to see the closure or the response or the, how do we, so that we all know that this person received a response and it was adequate or they felt like they've been answered. That was still the one hole that I feel like exists there. If you guys have a counterpoint, please let me know. But that was something that we brought up in a few of our meetings over the course of the year. So that there's some way.
So help me to understand. So you get an email or a complaint. Proper procedure is you send that in to us, and you're not hearing back the resolution.
Yeah.
Okay.
All of us.
Just
All
so
of us.
as a board, we know that this instance,
Okay.
whatever it was, we had closure, or it's still an issue and we need to address it.
That's an easy fix.
That was one thing that I thought we needed to kind of work on, was making sure we each knew what the other, that the head knew what the feet were doing. Yeah, right.
Right, and I always feel like before I respond to someone, I better check in with all of you to make sure that's it.
Well, and the proper procedure for that, and I think at least some of the training I got from the little one I handed out tonight, but I didn't see it really handled in yours, was my whole PD training this week or this month was make the superintendents responsible to make sure that the chain of command is followed. And if board members don't turn it over to us, and you guys are really good on that part, we're just not good in getting back to tell you how we resolved it. So we can fix that.
Yeah, the one example I had was, someone had chewed me out about something. I referred him to Gary. Gary did a great job working with him, but the person called me back and said, "Hey, I haven't heard anything." I check in with Gary. Gary says, "Well, yeah, we've dealt with this," and so
yeah,
anyway,
you should have known what Gary had told him, and then when you got that call, you could have said, "Well, I've talked to Gary, and Gary said that you had resolved it this way."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was something that we had talked about.
Yeah, we'll fix that.
Another thing that we've discussed several times, and this was representative in the evaluation also, was our advocacy with the legislature and the community leaders. We felt like maybe there's some additional steps that we could take there. Do you all feel that that's still the case, or what are your thoughts there?
Well, I think we have improved on it. The COVID has been kind of hampered a few things, but one of the best things that happened was when, Steve, we had the district, what is it called? The State of the District report, and we sent that out to them, so they saw everything that was happening in our district. And that was when I was the president, and I got feedback from several of them saying, "Thank you so much, it's so nice to see this, and that helps us so much, blah, blah, blah." So I think when things get back to normal and we start doing that again, that's definitely something we ought to pick up and try to keep going, as far as, letting them know what's going on in our district. So that part I thought was good.
Okay.
Will there be a State of the District report this year, since we had end-of-level tests last year? Or I mean, in 2021, we had end-of-level tests?
We do. Yeah, and we're just getting those results, and they're just being digested, and yeah, we'll have a State of the District.
I think we do need to do a little more legwork on this, even if it's making sure that we send the State of the District report or other things, because we have some new legislators who don't know us very well yet. And we need to touch base with them, especially the senator, because the Senate is so key in so many ways to the legislation that happens.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the best, as I've just thought over all the years, the best time I ever had working with the legislature was in Blackfoot, and it's because the Speaker of the House lived in my district, and the Senate President lived in Snake River, right across the river. And so they knew me as an individual, I knew them as an individual, and we shared a lot of common things just by being in the same community. So if you transpose that to here and now, if you've got a legislator who lives in your community, that's the best chance you have of having an influence on legislation. I mean, I was able to change the whole finance system in the state of Idaho because of those two men. And if you don't believe they have power, they do. Because when they say in the back catacombs, this will get out of committee, it will get out of committee.
Mm-hmm.
If they say it won't, it won't. It won't. It doesn't matter what kind of public comment. They have a lot of power. And so I'm just, we need to work. I had a really, really good relationship with Lyle Hilliard, but I don't have any relationship with Chris.
Yeah.
Our circles don't meet. So whoever has that, you need to work on making that. And the same with the North Logan guy. Mike, he's a university person, so you might have things in common and that, but I don't. And the last one was Dale's brother-in-law, and it was real easy because we had a lot of ties for me to get input to him. Dan Johnson, because he's a school person, I have an automatic in. Some of you might not, but I do. But we need to work him because he's a good, solid vote every time. Mm-hmm. And he can get us at least our ideas expressed down there very easily. On the south end, I don't know him from. Yeah.
He spent all summer fighting fires, but he's a good guy.
If you put him in a lineup, I don't even know if I could pick him out. So I'm just saying you need to be the people who establish the relationship there. And all in all, I think they're really good people, and I think this legislative session will be maybe a real turning point. If they follow through with their promises and they have money, it could be a great year for education.
Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
I also like that we got the school visits going with the legislators and the luncheon with them. And when I first came on board, that luncheon was kind of a griping session to the legislators. And I think we've sort of turned that around a little bit. So it's more of, we really appreciate all you do to help us. And that has been a positive thing. And then us going to the morning, whatever those are called on Saturday mornings.
Yeah, which no longer happen, but.
Because of COVID, or it never will?
No, I don't think these guys are going to have that particular meeting.
Oh, that was good.
They went to a Thursday night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They went to Thursday night instead of Saturday morning.
Oh, so is it the same time we meet here, or is that something?
They did it online for a long time. I don't know what they're going to do now.
Oh.
I love the fact that they gave me back my Saturday morning. So
Yeah. But it was a good time to.
It was.
It was a good time to present your thoughts and ideas and thank them. And
Personally.
Yeah.
So one question I had for the board is, do we have someone that runs the point man and coordinates these interactions, and has it as a board assignment, or do? I've just found professionally that if one person doesn't own it, sometimes it doesn't either get the attention that it needs, or it kind of doesn't see the progress that it needs. So that's my question: was what if you think that each of us just take some and do that, or if we should have an assignment that a person runs point on this and coordinates it.
I think it's a good idea.
So one question I had for the board is, do we have someone that has runs the point man and coordinates it? Any thoughts? Or if you want to think about it, that's
Yeah. I'd be happy to do that.
Well, Steve already said, if we know them personally,
Yeah.
that's more helpful. But I feel like Kathy's already doing part of that already.
okay.
So if you want to carry on, you can be the point man for the whole board.
So what
with
kind
the
of things
legislature.
do you want to, like, you're assigned to contact?
Yeah, like you
this-
give me an assignment to contact so-and-so and
And
talk
then
to
when
them
something
about
comes
something.
up.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff, your assignment this month is to go into Wilson Motors and buy a new Expedition.
The new Lightnings, is that one of those? Okay. Yeah, my boys are
Have
wanting
a
me to do
board
that.
raffle.
I actually, there's somebody who just won a seat in the state senate who's a member of my department on campus. He represents the district that's in North Ogden, and because of gerrymandering, goes all the way into Park City. So I had a meeting that included Chris Wilson several months ago because some of us from the university with a particular group went down to the state capitol. And so they're connected, they know each other. And so I just want to let you know, and I know Chris Wilson through some other, more personal avenues as well.
I kind of know him a little.
Yeah, so I'd be happy to pursue that, especially because my colleague, and I'm very close to him,
Yeah.
because he's actually in the Senate. It would be very easy for me, and I have lots of reasons to talk to both of them that span both, public schools and also universities. So that's something I'd be happy to do. Is
That's the most effective thing we can do.
It is because they don't possibly have the time to read everything about every piece of legislation. And it's valuable to them, just as it is to us, when somebody comes and says, look, this is how this piece of legislation will affect us, or affect education. And they appreciate that input because they can't do all that study.
So I'm happy to cultivate that.
Okay. Does anyone else have connections with any of our legislators? And I'll just put your name by them right now.
I go by Casey Snyder's all the time, so I'm fine.
Okay.
I do send thank you emails to Senator Sandal. He's not my senator anymore, but he's not my representative anymore, but I'm just trying to keep that connection going.
Yeah. So if I just give you one of the legislators to kind of just keep tabs on, say thanks, and when the legislature is in session, if something comes up, then you would maybe be the one representing our board who would send an email to them. Would you all be okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, the final one, guys, was the communication to our stakeholders, which I think we've done a better job this last year. Some of you have mentioned that we continue to explore opportunities to communicate with the stakeholders as to our goals, where we're headed, how they can help, that type of a thing. I think that the strategic plan that Jenda and Tim put together was a really good thing. I think everything that Jenda's doing with that department has been top notch, and so I don't know if we feel like that's got enough momentum that we don't need to address that, but we have talked about it in several meetings last year that we want to investigate ways to better communicate with our stakeholders what the successes of the district and where we're headed.
Did Tim say at one of the meetings that they're going to do strategic plan with the principals or something?
Yeah.
You're gonna
Tim
go
told
over
you
that?
that we're going to cover the principals. Then we will be challenged to do the same thing with their faculty. I'm telling you, getting the water to the end of the row sometimes is really difficult.
And probably we need to make sure that the other employees know what
Yeah,
it is
we
as
will.
well.
Yeah, Tim's got that all mapped out.
Okay.
You don't need to, I guarantee you it'll be done because.
Sounds like the ball's rolling well then. That was the only other thing of note that I had, other than Larry mentioned several times about cleaning up the policies. That's been an ongoing thing, right, Larry?
Sorry?
Just the policy cleanup, and you mentioned that in several of my notes that I had was just ongoing.
As we start to move more, Kathy gave me a big one tonight.
Oh, really?
That'll
Okay.
keep me busy for
A
a while.
Okay.
But COVID kind of, Tim and everyone had so much going that
Sure. No, I understand.
we just felt it was table time.
Yeah, I just brought it
But,
up because it's something that we
But
mentioned
yeah,
last year.
we'll reopen that and hopefully be able to meet together enough this year that we can take some action
Okay.
where we need to.
Alrighty.
So do you feel like that we have does everyone feel like we have a good handle on what we need to do moving forward?
We've talked about the things that were concerns, that I had down as concerns.
All right.
I do need to work with Richard on now better questions that offer more resolution to things that we need to identify, so we
Okay.
can.
I hate to keep monopolizing this, but there was one thing I thought about too. Some of the things on both of the evaluations for the board and the superintendent, I felt like I couldn't answer it yes. I kind of thought that was right, but I didn't know for sure because I didn't have the information. I didn't know if that was happening or if it had been done. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I'm just wondering if...
Maybe I'll talk to you offline about that, about maybe something we can do to do that.
Have an answer that's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I did, was I put, I don't know, but we should probably have some type of communication where we do know if that's happening in our district or not, or if we're doing it or not.
Okay.
Okay.
Monthly board emails. Are you all okay? Talking with Steve, he feels that that was as we each drafted an email to send as thank you to all the employees this last year, that was meaningful to quite a few. Are you okay to do that again this year?
I like that. I thought that was a nice, I've never had boards ever do that, so.
Okay. Well, we will, do you want to sign up for a particular month, or do you just want me to make assignments?
Just to sign.
Just sign it.
Okay. All right. I will do that. And then the cards, each of you should pick up the manila folders for the schools that reside within your precinct, or, in other words, pick up the schools that you help with their school community or school land trust plans. And sign those cards and bring them back next Thursday.
Or else.
Oh, or else. Kathy wanted to create a consequence, but I'll just trust you all to bring them back. So Jenda can. It was. It was. That was the first thing she asked. And if they don't, what's the consequence?
I was a teacher.
I'm going to bring it back, Jerry.
I was a mother.
You still are a mother.
Oh, yeah.
Mothering adult children is the hardest ever. Okay. Thank you all for coming. Any other concerns, comments?
The picnic on Monday?
It
Oh,
is.
yes.
And Carolyn did want me to kind of talk to you just for a minute about that. She
This
spent
Monday?
an awful lot of time making sure that we have
16th.
enough people to pull this off on Monday. So when she heard the comments that I made to the board members, if you wanted to help, just show up, she said in a kind way, there might not be anything for you to do because she's already got them lined up and covered. But she said, if you want to come and spell somebody off in a particular duty, you're more than welcome, but nobody needs to come and set up or anything like that. She's got all those people already arranged.
We can also just come and visit with people.
You can, and that's probably the most valuable thing you could do.
Okay.
And it starts at 5 and goes to 8?
I think so, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for coming to this extra meeting. I appreciate all of you being here and your time. We are now adjourned.
Thanks for the cookies, Kathy.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, take another one, please. Take one home for your family.
Are the